Let's build this multi-agent LangGraph application in 35 lines of Python code with these 3 steps. Let's get going. So these are the 3 major steps to getting your multi-agent LangGraph application running. Let me just break it down. The first step is to create your developer environment. I'm going to use UV. You can use pip or conda. This is 3 simple commands that you can translate into pip or conda if you want to. Next, I have written a very simple multi-agent application in 35 lines of code. It's actually 25 lines of code, excluding the import section. We'll walk through this in VS Code and also debug it in VS Code so you can see exactly what is happening as the application runs. And then lastly, we'll run it in LangGraph Studio. I think this is a really nice environment to, again, debug your multi-agent studio. You can see exactly what's happening. You can watch the state change as it goes between agents and tools. And lastly, I'll show you how to get rid of the warning statement or the nag inside LangGraph Studio for free. Let's get going. Step 1, let's build our developer environment. We're going to use UV. You can use pip or conda like I said before, but let's just go ahead and do UV init multi-agent. You can call this whatever you want. I'm going to call mine multi-agent. I'll cd into that directory. Now we need to add our dependencies. Do UV add LangGraph, LangGraph-CLI, LangGraph API, LangChain, OpenAI to call the LLM. I'm going to use a free LLM hosted on NVIDIA.com. And then what else? I'm going to use pandas, but I'm going to use the GPU accelerated version of pandas. I have an NVIDIA CUDA 13 installed. This is a new system. You might have CUDA 12, in which case you'd want to put a CUDA-Q12, depending on that. And then Python.env to get the environment variables into Python. I'm also going to do an upgrade here. UV is cached, so I want to always get the latest ones. And there we have it. If I look at the Py project, we can see we have GPU accelerated pandas or CUDA-F, CUDA for data frames, LangChain, OpenAI to call it LLM, LangGraph dependencies, and then Python.env. Now I need to create a .env file for our environment variables. First one is going to be, let's see, NVIDIA underscore API key. To get this key, this is a free thing from NVIDIA for a developer program. You go to build.nvidia.com. If you do not have an account, everything here is free. You log in, create your account with your email, verify your email, and then come back, you log in, and you click this thing up here. Let me make it a little bigger. You click your avatar. Mine is W for William. And then you click API keys. All right. Try to make this a good size. All right. So then you click this green button, generate API key. Give it a name. I'll call it multi-agent demo. And we'll do 7 days for security. Now I'm going to click this green button, and then I'm going to copy the API key it gives me. But I'm going to go ahead and switch over here so I don't give the whole world my API key. And then you paste your API key here from build.nvidia.com. All right. So we'll do that. And I'll do that off camera. And I'll go ahead and save that file. And that is everything we need for our development environment. Let's get to the code. All right, the code, I'll keep this quick. I created this bit.ly link for convenience. Let me just, so you can see the whole thing. This just links to this open repository, and in particular, this file right here, 003 multiagent.py. Essentially 6 sections. It's 25 lines of code. It's as simple as I could make it. It's 35 with the imports. So we have the imports, we have the LLM that the agents use. I have a data frame, very simple. I have one tool that runs Python code, and you can see I have the @ tool. It's called execute Python. I have a planning agent or a planner agent. You don't really probably need this, but just to make sure we are officially a multi-agent LangGraph application. And then I have the coder agent, which uses this tool we defined up here. And then I have a conditional edge to connect the agents or connect the nodes so that it knows when it's done or whether it should run the tool that it's been given. And lastly, we just add the nodes and the edges to the graph and compile it. This down here is if you want to run it locally. All right. I have, again, the code here. I have the notebook version, which I think is also another way to kind of step through and see what's happening. I am a developer advocate for NVIDIA. If you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, this is my LinkedIn. All right, come over here. I'll go ahead and run this thing. All right, so the files we have the code we just downloaded. We have the Pi project with our dependencies, and we're using UV. Just so you can kind of make sure yours looks like this. If you're following along, this is what the Pi project looks like. And then, of course, the agent code is on GitHub. And that's it for the code. We'll walk through the code at the end of the video. All right, for the third, final, and easiest step to get this multi-agent graph running, we just need to create one file and then run the studio. So that file, we need to create a LangGraph.json, just like so. And we need our outer curly brackets, and then we need dependencies. And that is going to map to present working directory. And then we need our graphs. We just have one in our case. Put that, another curly bracket, and we'll say agent. And then this part, you need to put the file that you want to run. So if you downloaded my file, it's named something different, right? It's named 003_multi-agent. That's why I did the curl command to rename it. And you also, I often forget this, you have to put agent at the end here because that's the type that's going to run. All right, so that is the LangGraph.json. Oops, let me save this thing. And so we have our agent.py, LangGraph.json we just created, dependencies. And now to run the studio is UV run, because I'm using UV, and then LangGraph dev. All right. I'm on a remote server, so I have a tunnel. Whoops. I have a tunnel here that is opened up to port 2024. And so here's the output from where I did UV run a LangGraph dev. So I have to scroll up here. And then this middle link is how you get to the studio. All right, and there we have it. There's the studio. All right, let's dig into how this thing works. All right, if you see this little pop-up warning and you want it to go away, it's free, or you can just close it out, but I prefer to just have it go away because it'll keep popping up on you. So I'll go ahead and kill LangGraph Studio, Control C, and then I will edit my .env file, and then I'll create a new line here and say export, and I'll paste that key name in there, Langsmith API key, okay? Now open up a new tab to smith.langchain.com. All right, I'm logged in. I'll log out so you can see what it looks like. Log out. So you create a new account, it's free. I'm gonna log in with my Gmail. And then to get a new key, you come down to this little gear icon on the bottom left here. And then you click this button up here, blue button. And then you give it a name, demo key, keep it as personal access. Just select the default. The only one in there is workspace 1, and then create key. All right, so obviously I'm not going to use that one. The whole world just saw it, but you just copy that. I'll go ahead and delete it. Okay, and then you would paste that in here. But before you run LangGraph, I notice it doesn't really read the .env file. So you can just go ahead and source it. And then you can make sure you have it Whoops. Make sure it is in your environment, and there you have it. All right, and then once you have it in there, then you run UV run LangGraph dev, and if I had a real key in there, it would have worked. So I'll actually move my to .env where I have my real values, and then I will source it. And now I have the real Langsmith API key in there. And now I'll do UV run LangGraph dev, and I should not have that pop-up warning. Yeah, no pop-up warning. Very cool. That's how you get rid of the warning. Now let's actually use the graph. All right, now let's do a little run in Studio so we can see how this thing works, okay? I like to go up here to the chat. It looks more like OpenAI, and I'll type in my prompt here, which says, what are the average sales? I'll click, actually I won't click that. I'll leave it just as is. And now it's gonna run. So the planner node, the planner agent is thinking, this is the chain of thought for the planner node. And it kind of freaks out. It says it doesn't have access, but then it finally gave the answer, right? It figured it out. Now, if we say show tool calls down here, we get a little more detail, right? Here's my prompt. Here's the planner node. It looped. Oh no, this is to regenerate. Never mind. Here is the execute Python tool that the function that we annotated as @tool. And then it ran it in the coding node. And then finally it spit out the answer. All right. If you go back to the graph view, click this graph button up here. And then you can kind of see the same view with a little more details, right? You can see the state that is passed, right? We start off, we give it the prompt, and then the planner node. And notice when I run it, it highlights. Let me zoom in on this graph here. You can see the input and you can see the output, and then the output of the coder where it ran the tool, right? It created the Python code here in the coder node, and then it executed it in the tool node, and then put it out right here, the coder node, put it over here. You can also do this in the trace. So this is the interact view. If you click trace, it gives you a little more color, looks a little nicer. Let me make this go all the way over. You can see it kind of as a waterfall. Actually, it is a waterfall. And how long each step took. And you can see the input and the output for each of these layers. So we start off, right? We start off with me giving it a prompt. And then the planner node right here, you can see the input to the planner was what our average sales. And then the planner node came, it did its reasoning and came up with a plan to execute. That was its reasoning right there. And then if I click coder node, right, it always goes to coder node. We can see the input was the reasoning from the planner, and the output was to execute this code right here, right? And then the dotted green line, let me zoom in, is the conditional edge. All these other edges are deterministic. It's definitely going to go down that edge. But here we have the should continue. If I click it, you can see should continue decided to go to tools, right? So should continue. Do I go this way or this way? It chose tools, and tools executed the code, and it gave back the result of that was the result of execute. Then it gave, it added it to the state and returned back to coder right here. And then again, it had to decide, do I go back to tools or do I go to the end on should continue? And it decided to give us the result at the end. And that is how to debug it. You can also do this in the code to get even more detail. All right, I'm going to run this in the code. I have breakpoints in each node. and also down here in main. All right, I'll hit run debug, and it's going to go through, do the imports, create the data set, yada, yada. All right, now I'm going to hit continue. And here's where we invoke the agent. So this is where we're going to start stepping through this graph over here. So it's predetermined. We're going to go from start to planner and then planner to coder. After that, though, is conditional. All right, so let's hit continue. And here we are in planner. And we've got the state, which right now is just the prompt. It's the human message, the prompt. Let me clear this out so it'll be a little easier to look at. Make it a little bigger. And we do state messages. And we can see there is there is the first prompt, and it should also be the last one. So -1. Yeah. All we have in the state right now is the prompt down here at the very beginning. What are the average sales? Okay. So planner is definitely on this yellow edge here, definitely going to coder. After it reasons, it's going to do a bit of reasoning and pass its reasoning to from planner to the coder. I'll hit continue. All right, so now we're in the coder agent, and the coder agent, here's where we actually create the coder agent, which is LOM with tools, which is LOM bind tools. This is how you create an agent, your basic agent in LangGraph. It's different than LangChain. If you want a video on that, I can do that too. If someone hit me up in the comments. All right, and it's going to do its reasoning. And now we're going to go to this dotted line, which has 2 lines, which is should continue. All right. So this thing generated the code from the LLM. And now we're in should continue. And we can see where it wants to go. If we look at the logic, it says go to tools if the last message is tool calls. Okay. So if we wanted to debug this, we can say, we can copy and paste that down here into debug, and yep, it's going to go to tools. Okay. Because the state, the last message was tool calls. Whoops. All right. So we hit go, we're going to go up to the tool, the execute Python. And if it errors, it's going to return why it errored, or it's going to return the result, the value of result back to the coder. And this is determined, deterministic. It's always going to go from tools to edge because there's no conditional edge there. All right. So let's walk through that thing. All right. So now we're back in coder agent. And again, we're going to go to should continue. And all of this is being stuffed into this state, right? The whole conversation is being stuffed into the state. But when we go to should continue, the last, or actually we can just look at state. We can look at the last message in state, put it down here, and you see it's empty, right? There is no tool calls. Oops. There's all of it right there. There's the last message. But we now know that it's going to go to end. And there it is. It returned to end. And whoops, terminal. Well, it already printed these out. And now it's going to return the actual message, the average sales. And that is the multi-agent, how to set it up, how to use it, how to debug it in the studio, and how to debug it in the code. If there's any questions or I missed something, hit me up in the comments below. And until next time, cheers and happy coding.